The young and the restless spoilers. The shadow of Damien's name had become a whispered enigma, a shadow that loomed over every conversation in Genoa City without ever taking form. The writers had seeded his existence through cryptic mentions and insinuations, but his absence from the scene only deepened the intrigue. Who was Damien? Why hadn't he appeared? And, most importantly, what role would he play when he finally arrived? Amy was certain of one thing: Damien existed. She had evidence, fragments of information that pointed to his reality. But the lingering question wasn't just about his existence, it was about his identity. Was Damien truly Nate's biological brother, or was there more to the story than anyone could imagine? Amy was determined to make sure the answer served her purpose, no matter the cost. Amy's secret plan. In a secluded corner of Genoa City, Amy met with Elena, a woman whose talents in deception had become something of an open secret among those desperate enough to seek her services. Elena, once entangled in the emotional turmoil of her relationships with Nate and Devon, had since detached herself from both men. Disillusioned and emotionally numb, she now operated in the shadows, using her expertise in DNA testing to manipulate the truth for the right price. "Amy," Elena said coolly as she sipped her coffee, "why come to me? What are you really trying to do here?" Amy leaned in, her voice low and urgent. "I need you to alter a DNA test. The results have to show that Damien is Nate's biological brother. It's crucial that everyone believes this." Elena raised an eyebrow, her expression impassive. "And why should I care about Nate's long-lost brother? Or you, for that matter?" Amy's lips curled into a sly smile. "Because I can make it worth your while. I know about your side projects. The ones where you adjust DNA results for a generous fee. This is no different. Except this time, you'll be helping me expose a truth that will shake Genoa City to its core." Elena's gaze narrowed. "Or creating a lie that will." Amy shrugged. "What's the difference? Truth, lie, they're just tools in the right hands. And besides, you're not exactly in a position to lecture me about ethics." Elena smirked at the jab, leaning back in her chair. "Fair enough. But let's get one thing straight: if I do this, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I don't care about Nate, Devon, or anyone else involved in this mess anymore. As far as I'm concerned, they deserve whatever fallout comes their way." Amy nodded, satisfied. "Then we have a deal." The deception takes shape. Elena went to work immediately, using her connections at the lab to fabricate the DNA test results. She carefully crafted the report to show an undeniable genetic match between Damien and Nate, ensuring that the evidence would withstand even the most rigorous scrutiny. Once the results were ready, she handed them to Amy with a single warning: once this goes public, there's no undoing it. Make sure you're ready for the fallout. Amy took the envelope with a confident smile. "Don't worry about me. Just make sure no one can trace this back to you." Amy's motives. Amy's obsession with Damien wasn't just about proving he existed, it was about using him as a weapon. By establishing him as Nate's brother, she was setting the stage for a power play that would disrupt the delicate balance of relationships and alliances in Genoa City. Her ultimate goal remained shrouded in secrecy, but one thing was clear: Amy thrived on chaos, and Damien was her key to creating it. But there was more to her plan than simple manipulation. Amy had been harboring her own suspicions about Damien's true parentage. If she could control the narrative, she could control the people around her, bending them to her will. Elena's indifference. For Elena, the job was just another transaction. She felt no loyalty to Nate or Devon anymore, and her disillusionment with both men had hardened her. Where she once might have hesitated, now she felt nothing. To her, altering the DNA test was just another means to an end, a way to make money and assert her independence in a world that had treated her unfairly. "Let them tear each other apart," Elena muttered to herself as she watched Amy walk away with the fabricated results. "It's not my problem anymore." The storm ahead. As Amy prepared to release the altered DNA test results, the tension in Genoa City began to mount. Rumors about Damien's connection to Nate spread like wildfire, fueled by Amy's careful whispers and strategic hints. The revelation of the DNA test was inevitable, and when it came, it would send shockwaves through the community. But questions lingered in the minds of those who heard Damian's name. Why was Amy so invested in proving his connection to Nate? What did she stand to gain from this deception? And, most importantly, who was Damian really, and what would happen when he finally stepped into the spotlight? For now, Damian remained a ghost, a figure whose absence only made his presence more haunting. But his time was coming. And when he finally appeared, the truth, whatever it might be, would change everything. A desperate search for Damien. Nate had always prided himself on being a problem solver, a man of action. When Amy confided in him about her long-lost son, Damien, he felt an immediate sense of responsibility. If this young man truly was his brother, Nate owed it to him, and to himself, to find him. But the search for Damien was proving to be a labyrinth of dead ends and unanswered questions. With Audra by his side, Nate scoured every possible lead. They checked old records, tracked down acquaintances of Amy's, and even hired private investigators to follow trails that had long since gone cold. But no matter how hard they tried, Damien seemed to be a ghost. No phone numbers, no social media, no sign of life. It was as if he had deliberately erased himself from existence. "I don't get it," Nate said one evening, frustration evident in his voice as he and Audra pored over a stack of documents. "How does someone just vanish like this? No one disappears without a trace." Audra, ever the realist, leaned back in her chair. "Maybe he doesn't want to be found. Or maybe there's more to this story than Amy's telling us." Nate shot her a questioning look. "What do you mean?" Audra shrugged. "Think about it. Damien's been gone for years, and now Amy suddenly wants to find him? Why now? And why involve you?" Nate hesitated, her words planting seeds of doubt in his mind. But he pushed them aside. Whatever Amy's motives, he needed to know the truth. If Damien was his brother, he deserved to know, and to help him if he could. The DNA revelation. The DNA results arrived one rainy afternoon, delivered by Amy herself. She handed the envelope to Nate with trembling hands, her eyes brimming with what appeared to be genuine emotion. "This is it," she said softly. "Proof that Damien is your brother." Nate opened the envelope with a mix of anticipation and dread. The results were clear. Damien shared enough genetic markers to confirm a sibling relationship. "I knew it," Amy whispered, her voice breaking. "I always knew you two were connected." For a moment, Nate felt a surge of emotion, relief, curiosity, and a newfound sense of purpose. He had a brother, a living link to a part of his family he had never known. But the moment was fleeting, shadowed by a nagging sense of unease. Something about Amy's behavior didn't sit right with him, and Audra's earlier words echoed in his mind. Damien's arrival months later, after an exhaustive search and countless dead ends, Damien finally appeared. It happened unexpectedly, on a crisp January morning in 2025. Nate was sitting in his office when the door swung open, and there he was, Damien. Tall, with a commanding presence and a piercing gaze that seemed to look straight through Nate, Damien radiated a quiet intensity that was both captivating and unsettling. His smile was sharp, almost predatory, as he extended a hand. "So," Damien said, his voice smooth and confident, "you're the big brother I've been hearing so much about." Nate stood, momentarily taken aback. "Damien. I've been looking for you." "I know," Damien replied with a smirk. "You've been very thorough. I figured it was time I let you find me." The air between them crackled with tension as Nate tried to process the man standing before him. Damien's presence was magnetic, but there was something in his eyes, something cold and calculating, that put Nate on edge. The storm begins. As the days passed, it became clear that Damien wasn't the long-lost brother Nate had imagined. While Damien was charming and intelligent, he had a darkness about him, a knack for manipulation that soon began to disrupt Nate's life in subtle but significant ways. Damien quickly ingratiated himself with Amy, who seemed blinded by her joy at having her son back. But with Nate, he played a more dangerous game, pushing boundaries and sowing discord in subtle, insidious ways. He questioned Nate's choices, challenged his authority, and even hinted at secrets from Amy's past that she had worked hard to bury. Damien's arrival began to strain Nate's relationships, with Audra, with Devon, and even with Victoria, who grew wary of Damien's influence. The question of truth, despite the DNA test results, doubts about Damien's identity lingered in Nate's mind. Something about the timing of his appearance, coupled with Amy's insistence on his legitimacy, didn't add up. Nate began to wonder if the test results had been tampered with, and if so, why. He approached Elena, hoping to gain some clarity. But Elena, who had been complicit in altering the results, played her part well. She feigned ignorance, assuring Nate that the results were accurate and above reproach. But the seed of doubt had already been planted, and Nate couldn't shake the feeling that Damien's sudden appearance was part of a larger scheme. Damien, the villain of 2025. As Damien's influence grew, his true nature began to emerge. He was cunning, ruthless, and utterly unrepentant in his pursuit of power. While he played the role of the prodigal son for Amy, he worked behind the scenes to undermine Nate, exploiting his insecurities and driving wedges between him and the people he cared about. Damien's ultimate goal remained unclear, but one thing was certain: his presence was a ticking time bomb, and when it finally exploded, the fallout would be catastrophic. For now, Nate clung to the belief that he could uncover the truth and protect his family from Damien's machinations. But as the weeks turned into months, it became increasingly clear that Damien was always one step ahead, a puppet master pulling the strings in a game only he seemed to understand. The big question: would the DNA results be enough to convince Nate of Damien's legitimacy? For now, it seemed they were. But the cracks in the facade were already beginning to show, and the truth, whatever it might be, was bound to surface eventually. When it did, it would shatter everything Nate thought he knew about his family, his brother, and himself. Let me know if you'd like to expand on Damien's ultimate motives, Nate's investigations, or the dynamics between the characters as the truth begins to unravel.